Hello, in this video tutorial I will show you how to import survey data into ATLAS.ti Mac. The first thing to know is that the data have to be in a spreadsheet format. It can be an Excel spreadsheet, a CSV spreadsheet, or one created with OpenOffice. Each one of the cases has to be identified by a unique ID, which is something obvious, I would say. In this case, I have identified each one of the 5 cases that I have in this example as follows: participant 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So these individuals have been identified in that way. However, please be aware that the way that you name your cases is irrelevant from the point of view of ATLAS.ti. You could have named them ID1, ID2, 001, 002, or however. It really does not matter. Each one of these cases will become in ATLAS.ti an individual document, so that you will be able to ask this program, how did the question given by participant 1 differ, or the answer given, I meant to say, by participant 1 differ from that given by participant 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. Here we have these 5 individuals here, these 5 cases, and above we have a set of variables as well as open-ended questions. Questions whose answers include text that we can analyze, that we can interpret with the help of ATLAS.ti. If you have a survey that only contains close-ended items, but it does not contain any question, any item that produces text that can be analyzed, then there is no reason, I would say, to analyze that with ATLAS.ti, because the software will not do a statistical analysis of these variables. For example, it will not quantify, the answer to this scale question or to this multiple choice question and so on. So really, the purpose of using ATLAS.ti in this analysis is to be able to interrogate the content of the answers given to the open-ended questions, this one here, across the variables represented by the closed-ended items. Therefore, I will be able to ask ATLAS.ti, for example, how did the people gender female from Brazil, how did they answer question 1? How did they answer question 2? How did their answers differ from those from people also gender female but from Botswana? So that is the kind of interrogation that we can expect to do when we import ATLAS.ti, when we import the survey into ATLAS.ti. So before you click on import survey, you have to take time to look at your spreadsheet and determine how you want to analyze this data in ATLAS.ti. And you translate that process of looking at your spreadsheet into a process of adding specific symbols as prefixes to the column headers of the spreadsheet. And those symbols will tell ATLAS.ti how to interpret, how to treat the content of these cells. So the first thing you have to do is to look for that column that includes the unique identifiers for each one of the cases. And once you find it, and normally it's the first one, you will add the exclamation mark as a symbol, as a prefix. That's the first thing you do. So you add the exclamation mark to that column header that contains the unique identifier of each case. Now, this column here, I named it participant. However, the way I name it is irrelevant. I could have named it cases, ID, or whatever, any other way. But what is relevant is that I have to add the exclamation mark to that column header. Here I have another one. Where was this interview conducted? Well, this information I wanted to be associated to each one of these individuals. So as soon as I see this in ATLAS.ti, as soon as I see participant 1, I want to know where this person was interviewed. So for that, I decided to add a tilde. I tilde to the column header. And that tilde tells ATLAS.ti that the content of these cells will be added as a comment to each one of these documents. So once we go into ATLAS.ti, you will see that next to participant 1, it will say community setting. Now, you could have decided to add other kind of information as a comment. For example, you could have said, oh, very difficult interview. The person did not want to answer the questions. That could have been written down here, and then when you go to ATLAS.ti, you will read next to participant 1, you will read very difficult interview. The person did not want to answer the questions. Okay? So you determine what you would like to add as a comment to each one of these individual cases. Let's take a look at another one. The column header says country. Please select from the list below the country where the clinic is based. Well, here, participant 1 selected Brazil, the next one Botswana, Brazil, Botswana, Brazil. So I think that in this case, it would make a lot of sense if I could ask ATLAS.ti to group these 5 individuals according to the country, so that I could eventually ask ATLAS.ti, how did those people from Brazil respond to question 1? Or how did those people from Botswana respond to question 2? And for ATLAS.ti know that these cases should be grouped together according to the country, I have to add a specific symbol as a prefix, and that symbol is a colon. The next one, gender, the same thing. I think it would make a lot of sense if ATLAS.ti could group together all of those who are gender female and group together all of those who are gender female. So in other words, gender as well as country before gender work well as classificatory variables for these cases. So once again, I will add a colon as a prefix. The colon will tell ATLAS.ti create groups of documents according to the gender. One for female, one for male. I have another one which is more or less similar. Knowledge of new WHO guidelines. I'm asking in a scale from 1 to 5, how well do you know the new WHO guidelines regarding primary care? I want ATLAS.ti to group all of those who responded 3 in one single document group, all of those who responded 2 in another one, and so on. For that, once again, I will add the colon as a prefix, so that eventually I will be able to ask, how did those who answered 3 to this question, how did they respond to question 1? You see, what did they say about topic X or topic Y? Let's go to the next one. Barriers to access services. What are the barriers to access services most common at your health center? Select as many as necessary. So you give people a list and you tell them select as many as you want. Now you will notice that this column header contains a pound as a prefix, while these other three contain colons. What is the difference? The difference is that the one on country only accepts one possible answer. So you can tell people, please select one from the following. The column gender, this variable only accepts one possible answer. The one on the scale from 1 to 5, also one possible answer. But the other one, on barriers, I am asking people to select as many as necessary. So, when you have a question like that one, and you want ATLAS.ti to group your respondents according to how they answered this question, you are going to add a pound as a prefix. The pound is added to all of those questions that accept more than one answer. So what will ATLAS.ti do? Will group these 5 participants in groups according to these values. So there will be a group for those who said transportation, a group for those who said economics, a group for those who said cultural competence. So the person in charge of entering the data into the spreadsheet will have to write down transportation, economics. Then I have another one. Are you following the new recommendations on primary care? Yes or no? If you have a yes or no question, you add a period as a prefix to the column header. And the period will tell ATLAS.ti group all of these 5 respondents, group together all of those respondents who answer yes to this question. And ATLAS.ti will not group together those who answered no, just those who answered yes. So you would add a period to that kind of question. Then you may have in your survey data whose inclusion into ATLAS.ti might not add anything to the qualitative analysis of this data. So if you have data that meets that condition, in other words, adding this into ATLAS.ti is irrelevant for my qualitative analysis, I have the choice of ignoring the data from the importation process. And that is precisely the case here. I do not care really how many people these health centers serve. From the perspective of my qualitative analysis, this will not make a difference. Therefore, I enter a less than symbol as a prefix, and that symbol tells ATLAS.ti to ignore this data from the importation process. And now we come to the kind of the centerpiece of this, which is the open-ended questions. We would like the open-ended questions to become codes and the answers that people provide to become quotations. And why is that? Because the purpose of importing this survey into ATLAS.ti is precisely to analyze the answers that people have given to the open-ended questions. So, if we do not add any symbol as a prefix to these column headers, ATLAS.ti will know that these column headers should become codes and that the text in the cells below should become quotations. So, in other words, ATLAS.ti will pre-code this for you. Will connect a code called Q1 population to 5 quotations, 5 segments of text. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It will do the same thing with the second question. Now, you will notice here, and you have noticed already, that I also add a double colon to the column headers. So what does this double colon mean? It means the following. In this case, let's take a look at this case. The question that I asked people was this: how would you describe the population that your health center serves? Well, if I want this to be a code, I don't think that it works well to have such a long question, because a code should really synthesize an idea, right? Therefore, I decided to synthesize that idea by writing down Q1 population. But then I added a double colon and I wrote the actual question. By doing that, I am asking ATLAS.ti to add the question, the text after the double colon, to add that as a comment of this code. So when we look at this code in ATLAS.ti Mac, we will see next to it the actual question that we ask people. Now, of course, you could have added there anything you wanted, but I think it makes sense to add the question so that when I look in ATLAS.ti to Q1 population, I will remember, this is what I asked people, right? The same thing for question 2, and then we have other items in the survey to which we also added this double colon. So what will happen with this? Well, let's take a look at this one here. Barriers to access services, double colon. What are the barriers to access services most common at your health center? Select as many as necessary. What will happen is that you will find when we import this into ATLAS.ti that there will be a group of documents called Barriers to Access Services Transportation. And next to that group, in the comment space of it, it will say, what are the barriers to access services most common at your health center, etc. So that you look at that and you will remember what is the question that you actually ask people. And now I will import. I will now. So I have a project that I call survey, and I will go into ATLAS.ti project. I go to import. I will proceed to and I select the file that I want to import, and here it is. So let's take a look at what happened after I clicked import survey. I have 5 documents. 1, and what is this? Here I see the answers that people gave to each one of the 2 open-ended questions. Each one of the answers became a quotation. And I know that because there is a vertical line on the margin. A vertical line represents a quotation. And I see that this quotation was connected to this code. And if I click on the code, I see what I asked people, which is, how would you describe the population that your health center serves? So as you may remember, when I explained to you, when you add double colon and then write something, that which goes after the double colon is added as a comment of that item. Well, this is precisely what you have here. Now you have then another one. This is the answer that this individual gave to question 2. And if I click there, I see the actual question in the comment space of that code. And also you have as a header to each answer the actual question. There you go, from document 1, participant 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. They're all here. Okay, what else do we have? We have that we have a total of 10 quotations. Quotations are segments of the text. In this particular case, they represent the answers that these people gave to the open-ended question. So we have 10. Why? Because there were 2 open-ended questions and there were 5 participants. So 2 times 5, as far as I remember, is 10. So there you go. There you have your quotations, your answers. If you go to the code icon in the navigator, you will see 2 codes. Q1 population. Double click on it. A window pops up with each one of the 5 answers. Participant 1, 2, 3, you see, 4, and 5. They're all there. The same thing for services. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What else do you have? If you go to the manager, to the document manager, you will see that here we have the documents, each one of them, and look at this. In the comment space of that document, it says community setting. And that is because to the column header, where I wrote location of the interview, I added a tilde as a prefix. The tilde means that the content of those cells will be added as a comment of each one of these documents. Okay, that's very nice. What else do we have? We also have that on the left side, in the space where we have the list of our groups, document groups, we see a number of different groups. Let's take a look at them. Here is one that is called Country Botswana. I see that participants 2 and 4 are from Botswana. Participants 1, 3, and 5 from Brazil. Now, why do we have this information here? Because in the spreadsheet, we added a colon as a prefix to the column header that said country. You see, and ATLAS.ti knew that if there is a column there, I have to create groups of documents according to the country. So I have 2 values here, Brazil and Botswana. There they are. Gender female, 1 to 5. Gender male, 3, 4. Those who said that barriers to access services is cultural competence, a barrier to access services, it was participant 3, 4, and 5. Those who said that economics is a barrier to access services, participants 1, 2, and 5. Transportation 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those who said that they are following the recommendations on primary care, they are participants 1, 3, and 5. Remember, that was the yes or no question. ATLAS.ti only created a group for those who answered yes. And here we have groups for those who said, we know the new guidelines at a level of 2. We know the new guidelines at a level of 3 in a scale from 1 to 5 and at a level of 4. Furthermore, if we access what we call the document group or the document groups manager, the manager of my document groups, what do we have here is each one of my document groups. And let me do this, okay? I think I did this too fast, so let me do this again. I have here document, show document group manager. Okay, now here I have each one of my groups, the comment. You see the comment here? What are the barriers to access services most common at your health center? Select as many as necessary. And why do I have that comment there? Because in the spreadsheet, in the column header, where I had barriers to access services, I added a double column and then I wrote what are the barriers to access services and so on. So that became a comment to that group, and to that group. All of these three are groups of different value that have to do with barriers to access services, correct? Country, Botswana, country, Brazil. Two groups related to country, two values, Botswana and Brazil. And each of one has a comment which specifies what I mean by that. The same with the rest. So that is what happens with the survey. So what you should expect to do now is perhaps to go deeper. So now you know that, well, in fact, let me do something else. Well, I did this, I guess, right? I did this. I even forgot. Yes, I showed you this already. So what you should expect to do now is to go deeper, perhaps. So you know, okay, this is how this individual responded to question 2 on services. But then you wonder, what did this person say more specifically than that? What did this person say about services? And that is when you have to go into perhaps what I would refer to as a second level of coding, which you can do manually or automatically using the auto coding tool. But that is another chapter, and we have video tutorials describing that. So I think this finalizes this video tutorial in which I wanted to show you how to, first of all, prepare the spreadsheet for importation, and second, how to import it. So, well, I think, let me just close by saying that, yes, the process of preparing the spreadsheet will require from you some time, but that is necessary. It's necessary regardless of the fact that you use or not ATLAS.ti. You always have to think about how you want ATLAS.ti or any other software to interpret the content of that spreadsheet. In this case, you translate that analysis, let's say, that thinking about how you want to interpret the content of the spreadsheet, you translate that into a process of inserting prefixes, symbols. And the table includes a few symbols. In the description of the YouTube video, there is a reference to the pages in the manual in which you will find that table and an explanation of this process. So I hope that this is useful for you. I hope that you now have a better understanding than you did before about how to import survey data into ATLAS.ti. Thank you very much.